So I want to start off this morning by thanking our sponsors. Um, could not do it without the help of our sponsors. And Haven of Hope, as I mentioned yesterday, is our platinum exclusive sponsor. Their treatment centers in Tennessee, and then our silver sponsors, SunCloud, The Meadows, and Linda Watts. And then we have our bronze level sponsors as well. Please visit the virtual exhibit booth. The treatment centers have giveaways there and talk about their treatment centers so you can get to know them a little bit more as well. Um, since we're just going to be together for this morning as a group, and then after Erin's talk, we'll split into the different breakout sessions for the day. We really won't have a chance because of how the CEO has set this up to be able to come back at the end all together. So you'll have your closing remarks in your individual groups. So after we do a few more announcements, I'll kind of do some closing remarks, which is kind of odd before I introduce Erin. But want to go ahead and have Nancy play a little clip for Haven of Hope. Yes, thank you.
The experience of getting to see people come in a certain state and see them transform and grow, I have a lot of gratitude for getting to experience that and walk along clients on that journey. Haven of Hope is different than other treatment centers because of our really strong focus on trauma. We really pride ourselves in making sure that every staff member is trained thoroughly, and we go past the eating disorder. We really want to understand where the pain is, where the wounds are, and try to heal them. Here, clients are going to experience a holistic approach to therapy. We primarily use the internal family systems model, and the approach that this model allows us to take when treating our clients, specifically the eating disorders and trauma, is significantly different. Just this approach offers a way for clients to know that they can internally transform the roles that these disorders have taken in their system and truly see a change happen on the outside after that internal transformation happens. And that's something that does not require anything in their external life to change. So it's unique in that way. Activities patients can enjoy here in their stay would include equine therapy, support animals, support dogs come into the facility and be with the clients. Other activities would include art therapy. We do a lot of art while we're here. And then fun things like puzzles and maybe a show on Netflix if it's appropriate.
The clients have cooking skills with the chefs where they learn different ways of preparing foods, but the chefs prepare all the meals.
Food that's cooked with a lot of love. We take our time, like I said, to make sure each individual gets what they need, and we try to make sure we take step by step to just make sure that prepping their food and giving them exactly what they need so they can get the treatment and help that they need.
For me, seeing a client progress through their recovery is just one of the most rewarding reasons for working here. The difference in their personalities when they first get here to when they become nourished, it's just a beautiful transition.
One of the biggest thing we see is the restoration of hope. We see people come here that they may not have a lot of reasons to have hope at the point that they enter here, and through the internal work that they get to do here that does not rely on their external circumstances changing in order for them to experience some real healing, we get to see them leave here with a greater sense of hope that is far beyond what they were carrying when they walked in.
Haven of Hope is a wonderful place for clients struggling with an eating disorder to come to feel great in a home environment with plenty of support to help them get through their recovery.
Haven of Hope is a fresh start. It's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel.
All right. Again, thanks to Haven of Hope and all the other sponsors. I'm going to do a few little housekeeping notes, and I'll try not to give you all the wrong information like I did yesterday. So make sure that you just keep your Zoom open not necessarily your camera, for 85% if you're at the talk, if you're wanting to get CE credits. And in addition to that, if you don't have to go to the breakout session that you signed up for, so don't worry about that. Just go to the one that you're wanting to go today. And if you're wanting to add on the other 4 days, reach out to Nancy at Connect, and that could be part of the recorded session for those 4 days, as well as for the entire conference. And the other people that I want to thank are all the presenters. I felt like yesterday, even though there were a few glitches, I think it went really, really well. I felt kind of pumped and pleased about it all. And I also wanted to mention that I know I've been talking about, and we've been talking a little bit about the conference last year, that also is available. We repackaged that. And what I really love about that, if there's anybody that's wanting to know or hear more from Dick Schwartz, he did an entire half-day training on IFS and eating disorders last year, and it was in person. And then I did a live demo. So similar to what Shavis did last year. But what I love about the repackaged conference that we have available now is that after the conference, Marcella Cox and Jean Catanzaro watched the video and then did a commentary, kind of talking everyone through about what was happening, like the different aspects of IFS that Dick was using throughout the demo. So that's available if you'd like that. And then in addition to the speakers and the moderators and all the sponsors, I just want to thank Nancy Atwater and Hillary Warren one more time for holding the fort down behind the scenes this whole entire year, as well as yesterday when we were trying to navigate everything. Could not have done this without them. And I think I've hit all the highlights. Somebody will let me know if I didn't. Yeah, I think I got it. And so I am going to go ahead and welcome Aaron Flores. I am beyond excited and so grateful to have Aaron here again this morning. And again, meaning he was at our first conference 2 years ago and it was just so fabulous to have him be a part of that day. And so when he said yes, that he would come back and he wanted to do a talk on creativity, I was like, perfect, excellent, come. Everybody's going to want to hear this. And creativity is one of the 8 C's of IFS. So it fits in perfectly to the other talks that we did yesterday and are doing today. And so just huge gratitude, Aaron, for you being willing to say yes and show up. And I am going to let Kate Conklin, who is the moderator, navigate introducing you formally. And same process as yesterday for everyone. Put your questions for Aaron in the questions, do the chat, and I am going to turn it over to Kate.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. We are so excited to have Aaron with us today. Aaron is a registered dietitian nutritionist based out of Los Angeles, California. With over 10 years of experience, Aaron has worked with eating disorders in a variety of settings. A large part of his career has been spent in the VA Greater Los Angeles healthcare system, where he has helped develop and launch one of the first binge eating disorder programs to help veterans struggling with this disorder. Since leaving the VA, Aaron has continued to work in the eating disorder community, helping run groups. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you. First of all, thanks for reading my short bio. I love that. So thank you. Teresa and Nancy and the rest of the team there, thank you so much for having me and inviting me to do this. It's a real honor to be here amongst the folks who are presenting. And I'm going to share my screen. And as we do that, hold on, let me just do that. A couple housekeeping things for me. All right, so folks can see my screen. Yes, all right. Excellent. Okay, so this is a talk I've never done before. So I am a tad nervous, but I think that's okay. Uh, so, so we're going to talk about creativity for a while. Um, and also like for the folks who were enjoying the playlist, uh, that's going to connect. Okay. So those were some of the best compliments. Um, really, that like you were enjoying the playlist. I won't tell you how long it took me to do it, but it took me a long time. And I'll tell you why in a few minutes. So just a little bit more about me. I am, in addition to the things that were already mentioned, I also co-hosted a podcast a while ago called Dietitians Unplugged. I have a new podcast called Men Unscripted, where I interview men anonymously about their body story, and there's about 30 of them, and I've really loved doing it. I hopefully will do some more in the near future, but that's a project that I've really enjoyed doing. I'm also a certified body trust specialist, which is a training that has been incredibly helpful and meaningful for me, both professionally and personally. I started a Substack in September, and I would encourage y'all to sort of check that out. It's called The Unscripted Journey, and it's been really fun to start writing that. I never thought I would like writing it, but it's been great. Um, and then also just sort of identifying privileges and identities that are showing up here. I am I was born in Mexico. My dad is from Mexico. My mom is from here in LA. So I'm white passing, biracial, straight, cisgender. I live in a larger body. I identify as fat, raised upper middle class, Jewish, and those things inform my my view of the world, and also things that I also love to sort of think about how I can also pay attention to those things and help me see the world in a much broader perspective. And the last thing up there that doesn't you might not be quite as familiar with, but that thing on the bottom right is Star Wars. I love Star Wars, and that'll sort of come through a little bit as we go. All right. So here's our agenda for today. We are going to look at the role of creativity, how it can help, what are benefits of it, maybe some of the challenges we find with it, and then also like I'm going to encourage you to think about a little bit about how we can work differently. Um, and I apologize. I wasn't able to sit in on a lot of talks yesterday, but I did sit in on Marcy's talk, and I think hearing that, and then today, I think you're gonna really enjoy some of the parallels and things that sort of are going to overlap. And so I think about creativity. I think about the work we do, and of course, AI helped me make an image. And I think about sort of how do we blend the two? Where is the science and where is the art in our work? Because we need both. We're not going to get rid of either, but how do we embrace both? And how do we and ways to think about that? All right, so we're going to be a little interactive. Okay, if you take your phone out and you scan that QR code that you have there, or if you go to slido.com and enter that number 2948495, you're going to be able to answer this question. All right, it's a free response. There's no names, so the answers are going to pop up as people give them. But I want you to sort of take a second and say, when you think of traditional eating disorder treatment, what do you think has been missing, and where are we falling short? This could be its own talk. We could spend many hours probably talking about this, but I want to start here because I think it's really helpful to understand that there is a lot working, but there are also some spots that we could think about doing better. So they're coming in: flexibility, too much emphasis on behaviors, cultural. Wow, these are great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, high enough pay. Amen to that one. Insurance barriers. Yes. All of these. Good. I love seeing all these responses. And my hope, as we're doing this and you're thinking about some of these, is that you're starting that hopefully what we talk about today is going to help you think about how do we address some of these shortcomings. This is great. I don't know if I can scroll. Yeah, I can scroll through these. There are a lot. I love that there are a lot. And just sort of having them come through is great. So I really appreciate y'all participating. And then we're seeing themes at the top there. So obviously there are a lot of themes, and then the last one at the very top that just came in, too rigid. So let's figure out how to address some rigidity. If I were to answer this question, I think about how many folks are not getting treatment for a lot of different reasons. One, they might not think they have an eating disorder versus insurance versus location, all the things that could show up there. How many folks are not getting the support they need? I also think about how common it is or how frequent it is people are continue to struggle even after treatment or even on a outpatient setting. And that's okay. I mean, I think that's normal. And I think it's also important to think about, okay, if we did things a little bit differently, how would that change? I think affordability of treatment is very, a big barrier. I also think one of the biggest barriers that show up is how diet culture is continuing to influence all of us. We live in diet culture. Even if we've pulled ourselves out, diet culture is still showing up for us and around us and for our clients constantly. And so recovering into a world like that is really, really challenging. I think the last thing, and again, why I was so interested to hear Marcy's talk, is thinking about burnout and what is, how we as providers are having a hard time. It is 2025 has been a year. 0 out of 5 stars, would not recommend to anyone. And it's hard to be a provider. It's hard to do this work. It's still meaningful. It's still incredibly powerful. I don't want to do anything else, but it's hard. And I think about one thing that we talked about in our body trust certification was thinking about maybe it's not burnout, it's moral injury. And there's a video about moral injury on YouTube, but it's like we came into this work wanting to do good, right? We came into this work wanting to help people, wanting to make a difference in people's lives. And here we are with all the barriers that are showing up that we listed before, in addition to the barriers outside. And it gets in the way of us doing the work we came here to do. We are, the barriers show up in a way where really it almost stops us from doing the work we want to do. It's not because we can't, it's just all these barriers show up. So I think about the moral injury of constantly having to fight against all of these systems in order to make the work we do applicable to our clients. So what's missing? I think it's creativity. Someone mentioned flexibility, and then some personalization. So let's spend some time and talk about embracing creativity and how I have come to this. All right, so everything comes with a story. All right, so this is a book that I found. I blacked out the author's name because I want to reveal it in the next slide. If you know it, don't spoil it, all right? But I picked up this book. I was with my partner. We were, I have teenagers, and we had one of those lucky days where no teenagers were around, so we got to do whatever we want. And we went to the Museum of Modern Art here in LA, and we were, as you do at a museum, go to the gift shop after and looking around, and I saw this book, and I was drawn to it both by the cover, the simplicity of it, but also by the author. And I picked it up, and the page I turned to was a page talking about John Wood. Now, if you know anything about me, there's a few things that you probably know that I love, and one of them, Star Wars. And yes, there's going to be some Yoda stuff in here. 2 is I love Metallica. and 3 is I love UCLA. And John Wooden was a coach at UCLA. He came up with the pyramid of success. That's right here. And he was a basketball coach and won, like 10 titles in 11 years. Very prolific coach. And the section I opened to was talking about how John Wooden used to teach his players at the very first practice of the year how to put on their socks. And literally spent like almost an hour, if not more, talking about how we are going to put on our socks. And the reason is his idea was, listen, your feet are very important. And I want you to feel very like secure in your feet. Also, the routineness, like if you're secure in your feet, you're going to be secure in how you perform on the court, right? You're going to know that your foundation is strong. And the book sort of talked about how creating routines opens up time for creativity, right? How we need this space. So this is the author of that book. 10 bonus points if anyone knows who that is just by looking at him. It'd be great if someone did. Maybe no one does, but this is a current picture of him. I think yes, it is Rick Rubin. Okay, so Rick Rubin is a record producer, and I picked up this book, read it, and I was struck by not only the sort of some of the messages in there, but like rethinking about maybe I'm creative. I picked up this book and I'm like, I don't know why I would read this. I'm not really creative. And all of a sudden I started to read it and I'm like, well, maybe I am. I never really thought of my job as creative. And so it really sort of got me thinking. I recommend the audiobook. His voice is also very like Zen-like. So him reading these passages is also very helpful. But for those of you who don't know who Rick Rubin is, let's go through some of who he is. Rick Rubin, and he's the second guy on the right there, is a founding member of the Beastie Boys. He was their original DJ. He also was their producer, and he was really instrumental in helping the Beastie Boys grow and build the audience that they did. So again, this is the early 80s. This is early rap, hip hop, no white artists. And he, sort of figured out ways to make their music very accessible to people. But once they heard it, they're like, oh, these are great songs. Like these are great raps. Like we really love this group no matter what they look like. But, sort of having to create an image of them, right, that would be really popular. In addition to that, he is the founding member of Def Jam Records. Def Jam Records, he started it in his dorm room at NYU his freshman year. Russell Simmons, who's in the picture with him, ended up partnering with him, and they sort of built this really big record production empire. He also, when he talks about sort of forming this label, he was like, well, I didn't know you couldn't just I started this label because I wanted to do it. No one told me I couldn't, right? I didn't know you don't just start a record label in the dorm room of your NYU in your NYU dorm. But just because no one had done it before doesn't mean he couldn't. So he did. So he's the founder of Def Jam Records. He's gone on to produce many, many artists, LL Cool J. And we're not going to list all of them because we'd be here forever. But also he was the producer of one of the songs you heard coming in the waiting room, Walk This Way, which is with a collaboration between Run DMC and Aerosmith. It was a song that was created in the 80s. Aerosmith was not very popular at that point. Like they were declining. Run DMC was incredibly popular. And it was really the first mix of rock and rap in a song together, performing together. And it blew up. It was amazingly popular. And it was, partly because of Rick Rubin suggesting, hey, let's figure out how to collab in this song to make it so popular. He's also worked with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You heard them in the playlist, played a few times, and has been a producer in many of their albums. He's worked with Tom Petty. And he doesn't just work with folks in rap or hip hop, but he's worked with metal bands. This is Slayer. I'm sure there's a lot of Slayer fans out there, but he has helped produce a lot of their albums. And then one of his really interesting sort of partnerships was working with Johnny Cash later in his career. And one of the songs I really wanted to put on the playlist, but I was like, it's 7:15 in the morning, at least my time. Maybe it's a little dark, but Johnny Cash did a bunch of new songs when he was older, but also a lot of covers of current music. And he did a cover of Hurt by 9 Inch Nails. And if you've ever heard it, it is an incredibly powerful song. The original is powerful. The original is like the original ends an album that is incredibly dark. But it is like this final song of just like saying like all of the pain that Trent Reznor, who wrote the song in 9 Inch Nails, was feeling and expressing it. Johnny Cash sang it later in life, and if you hear it, you like the meaning still holds, right? The meaning of like this person feeling the pain, even like as being older, like near the end of his life, is so powerful. I have I can see some of the chat, so I appreciate people saying like it's never too early for dark. I agree, but I'm also trying to play to the larger audience here. But I could listen to that song anytime. And Rick Rubin was an instrumental part of that, like saying like, I think you should sing this song. He also worked with Adele. We'll go some other folks that he worked with. And of course I had to, because I'm a fan of Metallica, here's a picture of him working with Metallica. Okay. Here's a picture of Rick Rubin at work. He has this studio here in LA. It's called Shangri-La, and it's been around for about 50 years. And thankfully it survived both fires, one in 2017 and then the recent one in January. And a lot of people come to work with him. He's barefoot almost all the time. He wants to feel the ground. He's very Zen dude. And the studio is also incredibly minimalist. Every time someone comes in, it gets repainted white. There's only furniture in there that he, as he says, needs to be in there because he wants artists to come. And there's no art on the walls, right? So he says he wants artists to come and not be influenced by other art. He wants them to be themselves and find their own inspiration. Yes. So he worked with the Chicks also. So thank you for that. Great. So here's so this is him at work. All right. And here's a quote from the guitar player from Metallica about working with Rick Rubin. And it says, the great thing about working with Rick is that he's never around. I would say that's a strong point, and it leaves the four of us to take on the entire brunt of the work and the planning that goes into songwriting process and the recording process. Of course, Rick was there for part of that process. We recorded drums and vocals, but the fact that we were isolated in our studio working on our songs ourselves made a big difference because it kept our sound pure. We got more Metallica that way than we had previously with Bob Rock, their previous producer. I love this, right? Not being around, but being around, right? And being where you needed, helped them develop the most unique sound to them than they felt like they had done before. All right, so I'm building some foundations here. Here again is just a little bit longer list of who he's worked with. I guarantee you, if you look at his discography, he has been involved in at least 4 or 5 albums you love. Okay. So the last thing I'll sort of say before we sort of talk about some quotes here is that very early on, Rick Rubin talked about himself not as a producer, but as a reducer. and like sort of paring things down, getting things in their simplest form, editing, things like that. And I think that's a really interesting term to think about when it comes to record production. So what does all this have to do with us and our work? So what I am going to do is I pulled a bunch of quotes from his book, and I want to read them and I want to talk about them a little bit as we go. I want us to think about as we do this and go forward is he's talking about artists, right? He's talking about working with artists and doing the work, right? Creating the work. Okay. In the examples here that I'm thinking about us, the providers, as the artists. Okay. I'm thinking about us, the providers, as the artists. The work is doing the work with the clients. Okay. So as we think about these quotes, I want us to center ourselves as the artist. Okay. All right. So here, I'm going to read some quotes before, and then why don't you read them first? Gives me a chance to take a sip of coffee. All right. So the first page is a couple quotes that say, to live as an artist is a way of being in the world, a way of perceiving, a way of practicing, of paying attention. Being creative doesn't mean having all the answers. It means opening up. It means being open to all the possibilities. Artists who are able to continually create great works throughout their lives often manage to preserve these childlike qualities, practicing in a way of being that allows you to see the world through uncorrupted, innocent eyes, can free you in the act can free you to act in concert with the universe's timetable. All right, so these first ones, I really love. Okay, so as you're reading these, right, there's going to be some overlaps in the IFS. And when I asked Teresa about presenting this, I'm like, is this going to work? And as I hear more and more, I'm like, yes, there are many parts of this, right, that work and overlap. So I think about this, right, in us being the artist, okay? And again, I think the first part is allowing us to break out of the rigidity of how we are trained traditionally and thinking about, I'm an art, like I'm going to do this from a very creative standpoint. I'm allowed to do this from a very creative standpoint. I'm allowed to navigate this without these sort of constraints that have traditionally been there. And it doesn't mean having all the answers. It means being open to all the possibilities. I love this so much because when I think about working with our clients, I think about, at least for me as a dietitian, being trained to have all the answers, right? Like, here's the problem. Here's how I'm going to help you fix it. And that doesn't matter like what sort of what area I've been working in. I feel like that training is consistent. And I think about working with clients and doing this work individually with folks and how valuable it is to not have all the answers, but being open to all the different possibilities that can come in helping people achieve some healing. I also think about the benefit of that and continually doing that, of having this childlike quality in our work, right? Showing up each day and feeling inspired, feeling like it's going to be a new day, feeling open to what is going to come to us. Again, what comes to us, right, is like how our clients are showing up, and then us as artists, how we're open to that. The next, okay, all art is a work in progress. It's helpful to see the piece you're working on as an experiment, one in which you can't predict the outcome. Whatever the result, you will receive useful information that will benefit the next experiment. If you start from a position that there is no right or wrong, no good or bad, and creativity is just free play with no rules, it's easier to submerge yourself joyfully in the process of making things. You're not playing to win. We're playing to play. And ultimately, playing is fun. Perfectionism gets in the way of fun. And a more skillful goal might be to find comfort in the process, to make and put out successive work with ease. All right. I think about this, right, as us artists working with our clients, how much we tie or how much we think about someone achieving or continuing their healing process and recovery. That this intervention is going to work, right? Because they say it's going to work. But I think about not every intervention we try or that we do with our clients works. Sometimes it really is a misstep. And it's not because we did it wrong. It's just we need to learn something from it. And I think this idea of showing up with the idea of, you know what, I'm just going to playfully navigate this really hard thing. I think also like our clients can sort of perceive that and hopefully feel even more comfortable with us, allow for more vulnerability. And as we're spending so much time over these past 2 days, in this conference in these 2 days, is seeing all the parts that get to show up with us. Next, to vary your inspiration, consider varying the inputs. Turn the sound off to watch a film, listen to the same song on repeat, read only the first word of each sentence in a short story, arrange stones by size of color, learn to lucid dream, break habits, look for differences, notice connections. And I think so much of our work, right? Again, we're the artist in these sessions is listening, but listening in different ways, listening in all the ways we can. Not making assumptions. Oh, well, I've seen clients like this. I've done this for a while. I sort of know where this is going to go. I don't know where this is going to go. I need to constantly be listening, constantly be paying attention, constantly for looking for the connections we can see in this. Failure is the information you need to get where you're going. We need to fail. Failure is a part of this journey. And when we think of failure, especially in eating disorder recovery and eating disorder work, I think the idea of failure becomes very scary to hold on to, right? It becomes very scary to think about. This is, if someone fails, right, they're gonna relapse, and that can happen. And sometimes those consequences are dire. But there are also times where like the failures are very beneficial, that we can learn so much from them, and not being for us, right? Not being afraid of failure. Rick Rubin also talks about awareness, and it's not a state that you force. There's little effort though persistence is the key. It's something you actively allow to happen. It's a presence with an acceptance of what is happening in the internal now. So again, very Zen-like, right? But how do we show up to our sessions with awareness? How do we show up with our sessions when the world is on fire? And it's very hard to be present, right? Because of that burnout moral injury that we're experiencing. But it's a practice, right? And it's something we continually work on. All right. We got a couple more before we go into some other stuff. The goal is not to fit in. If anything, it's to amplify the differences. What doesn't fit, like the special characteristics unique to how we see the world, instead of sounding like others. Value your own voice, develop it. I think this is such a powerful quote here, because I think about not only us, right, navigating our own path in our profession, but also our clients, that their path through their recovery is not going to look the same as the client we saw before or the client we worked with before. And how do we amplify those differences and embrace them instead of holding on to or not allowing them to happen, like nurturing those differences, but knowing how hard it is. If you know what you want to do and you do it, that's the work of a craftsman. If you begin with a question and use it to guide your adventure of discovery, that's the work of an artist. I think so much about the difference between a craftsman and an artist. And it's questioning, always questioning. and letting it guide our adventure. Good habits create art. The way we do anything is the way we do everything. Treat each choice you make, each action you take, each word you speak with skillful care. The goal is to live your life in the service of art. I'm going to hold on to this quote and come back to it in a second, because I think about there's a lot of things that we can think about with good habits, right? In both us, but also working with clients that I think is going to be a good application here. So hold on to that one. And then lastly, in nature, some seeds lie dormant in anticipation of the season most conducive to their growth. This is the true art. This is true of art as well. There are ideas whose time has not yet come, or perhaps their time has come, but you're not ready to engage with them. Other times, developing a different seed may shed light on a dormant one. He talks about planting seeds, and that some seeds are not going to grow, and that's okay. Some seeds will foster growth in another one. And I think this is such a powerful, again, example for us as providers to think about, the path I'm going to take with this client, or where I think could be helpful. It might not work, but maybe I'm planting a seed that will grow later, or that will grow a seed that has been planted before, or maybe the seed just won't grow. But in any way, it's not a failure. It's a very important process. And then the last is listening is suspending disbelief. We're openly receiving, paying attention with no preconceived ideas. The only goal is to fully and clearly understand what is being transmitted, remaining totally present with what being expressed, and allowing it to be what it is. Anything less is only a disservice to the speaker, but also to yourself. While creating and defending a story in your own head, you miss information. You might alter or evolve. You might miss information that might alter or evolve your current thoughts. I want to go back to the burnout part. And I want to say, again, it's been rough this year. For a lot of us, in a lot of different ways, it's been rough, in a lot of the same ways. I notice how hard it is sometimes to listen and to show up to work and to do this. I know it's hard. And I also think about how it is so meaningful for our clients when we do. And that is really it's about how are we making space so that we are constantly listening. And I think, this is a great thing to sort of transition into how do we apply this, right? So again, Rick Rubin, it's interesting. I'm finding all these different things, and we're going to get to one later, where these folks who don't write about our work at all are the ones who are influencing me the most. And so I'm thinking about the applications of this. So I think about balancing the art and science. We need both. But, back in the original conference, I had a whole slide talking about questioning everything, or a whole series of my talk talking about questioning everything. And we need to keep saying it. We still need to question everything. Back then, I was talking about diet culture and what we know about bodies and health and body size and health, and how we need to unlearn so much. We still need to do many of those skills. We still need to be questioning everything. And one of the words that gets thrown out so much is doing evidence-based practices, which are helpful and useful. But I think it's important to ask, what is an evidence-based practice? What is it missing? What does it include? And more importantly, what does it not include? For example, weight loss is a evidence-based practice. My organization, my professional organization, has a certification that you can complete. I forget how long it is. It's too long, to be honest. If it's over 0 minutes, on weight management. And they claim again, it's evidence-based approaches towards weight management. But everything we also know, on the other hand, would discount that. would say, is that really evidence-based? Is the evidence really supporting that? So we need to question so many things. This is just sort of a Venn diagram I found on, what sort of defining evidence-based practice and what are some of the factors that go into it. But I think about with each of these things and each of these bigger circles, we can think about ways in which, because of all the things that we mentioned before as barriers that would influence how these inputs are coming in and impacting our decision if this is evidence-based practice. Right? The research is excludes a lot of folks, right? Our clinical experience might be because of how treatment works and because of how a lot of other barriers, right? Like we might not be seeing a lot of different variety of folks. So our clinical experience might be limited. And oftentimes, sometimes the preference of what patients want can be influenced by what we say. Are they really making choice? Are they really consenting in our work? How are we providing informed consent to all of our clients as they move through this process? So this idea of evidence-based practice, we can poke some holes in to say, I think we need to question what we define as evidence-based practice. So I'm going to give us some examples here as we go. I want to, well, I'll wrap it up. Okay. The sentence I wanted to say, I'll put it near the end. So let's talk about how do we apply creativity, or how I've applied it. Okay. Not just with clients, but in trying to solve a problem and think about it from a creative standpoint. Okay. Meal plans. We as dietitians get asked a lot to make meal plans. When I worked at treatment centers, it was a thing that was needed as a part of someone's treatment course. And I think for the most part, it's changing, but like for some reason, diabetic exchanges have been the default of structure for meal plans. Why? I have no clue. I've tried to do research on it. It sort of started in the 80s and 90s, and it's shifted. But from what I read is mostly it started with hospital-based inpatient treatment needing some tools to see how much their clients were eating, right, or if they were administering enough food, and they used diabetic exchanges. Okay, now yes, we've done a better job. We're sort of moving away from exchanges. We have some folks use plate methods, some folks use other methods, but I think we could still do it a little bit differently. Okay. I think no matter what meal plan we use, I think we need to think about how rigid they become, and how rigid they are for the clients once they continue to use them. Yes, I agree with all foods fit, and I'm like, that's like unconditional permission to eat, right? It's a full stop, all foods fit, period. No exceptions at all. Okay. Well, I mean, there are, listen, allergies, things like that, yes, but I'm talking about like all foods fit. All foods can be included and neutral, full stop. Okay. But I think there's also a different way. All right. So let's sort of think about what would sort of maybe blow it out of the water. Some folks have heard me talk about this already, because it's been, again, this has been a seed that's been growing. Is I think this is the best darn eating disorder book ever written. I know hot takes are supposed to inspire some critique. That's my hot take. Okay. This is the best book for food and eating disorder recovery that we can embrace. Okay. So let me go through and tell you why. First of all, I see some folks who have the book. If you don't have the book, the book is called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It's by Samin Nosrat, a chef from the Bay Area. There's also a Netflix show of the same title where Samin goes through different regions of the world and focuses on each one of these things: salt, fat, acid, and heat. It's a beautiful show. Highly recommend. You don't watch it hungry. You're gonna be like craving so many yummy foods after. Highly recommend. If you don't have the book, I really recommend you get it. Really recommend you get it. For all my fellow RDs out there, if you're feeling short of CEs and your accreditation is coming up soon, like me, a couple years ago, go on to, I think, Skelly Skills or one of those, sites where you can get CEs for reading books. This one is on there. You can get like 25 credits, CEs, for reading this book. All right. Highly do it. Do it tomorrow. Okay. Once you're done with this conference and you get your CEs here, you're going to read this book and you're all set. Okay. You buy the book and it's a work of art. It's a cookbook like none other that I've read. And there are these beautiful illustrations to accompany the book. Okay. And here's one where they're talking about fat and they're talking about how much oil you put in a pan in order to saute something, pan fry something, shallow fry versus deep fry. I love this because I was working with a client. We were talking about, they wanted to make eggs. And I said, put a little oil and a little butter in the pan. And this person really was struggling with just that. Like, not because of using fats, but because they didn't know how much to put. No clue. Like, what is it? What is it? I don't know, like a drizzle? That doesn't mean anything. Like, put some, that doesn't mean anything. And we didn't want to measure because that was going to be like way, way harder. Right. So we talked about this visual, right? If you think about the depth of the pan, right? Just enough oil, like for your eggs and butter, to coat the pan, maybe a little bit more, right? But then we can see these really beautiful images that help our brain visually understand, okay, this is what applying fat, right? The different, again, amounts in order to cook things in a certain way. So helpful, right? And it's also giving you a visual representation. It's not a dice, it's not a chop, right? Tiny pieces, small pieces, big pieces, chunks. That is highly relatable, right? So I think about someone who's experiencing an eating disorder and how hard it can be to sort of manage these things. These are excellent representations. Also, there's this, I love this page. One, if you hang out with me a lot, I love eggs. When I am done in this profession, I'm going to open up a place and just make eggs for people. I love making eggs. I think I'm really good at it. Come on over and see. But like, I love this because it's like, oh, if you cook an egg for this, if you boil an egg for this long, this is what your yolk is going to look like. And again, it's a great visual of like, hey, you know what? Depending on your preference, you're going to know how long to cook it. It doesn't matter whether you cook it for 15 minutes or 4. It's what you like, right? Do you like it runny? Do you not like it runny? We'll see, right? But like, we get to play with these things. When I working in treatment and working with clients, I really thought about when folks were like doing cooking skills, and I think cooking skills are important. I don't think, by the way, I also don't think, my other hot take is, in order to move into recovery, I don't think you have to cook meals at all if you don't want to. It's not part of this. If you want to, yes, let's figure out how. But if you don't, that's okay. We can do this. All right. So you don't have to learn to cook. Okay. But I also think this book is incredible for those folks because it helps understand how they're getting the flavor they're getting. Anyways, this is a great visual representation of how to chop things. It gives you really great tools on how to do it. This is an iconic piece in the book of how to make mayonnaise. If you haven't made mayonnaise, highly recommend you make your own mayonnaise. The taste is Really, especially this recipe is just a little bit different. I'm on the west, and by the way, I also love mayonnaise. I'm on the West Coast. We're Best Foods. We're not Hellman's. I don't know why we can't have both. That's a different talk, but love mayonnaise. Make this. It's so easy. And again, this this recipe, right? I love even how it's displayed, right? Some people need a more laid out approach, and some people need a piece of art to look at in order to understand how to apply something. Okay. All right. This is a epic page in the book. I really recommend this. And it's talking about it like something that shows up for me all the time. What do I want to cook today? I have no clue. And I've used this. And it's so it can drill down to like, gives you ideas for location. It gives you ideas for new ingredients. I love even the first flow sheet, right? Have I read this book? No. Okay, I get it. But this book is really about the journey, not the destination. So maybe stop trying and skip ahead, and head back to the beginning, right? Again, so much of what Rick Rubin was telling us earlier, right, is I enjoy the journey, enjoy the process of this. I want to make one. I'm going to commission this artist, not really, but I wish I could, to say, what should I eat? And for the clients that I've been working with, I use this chart in some ways, and I change the top to say, what should I eat? And we're not talking types of food. I'm talking about then using salt, fat, acid, and heat. Where could we get these components in your food? Okay. And it helps us sort of navigate a decision tree of how to eat, right? Not thinking about, oh, well, do I want pizza or do I want a salad? No, focus on these components first. Other examples of Caesar salad, right? Again, I just wanted to show the images because I think it's so inspiring, at least for me, that's really great. Okay. Why salt, fat, acid, and heat works. Okay. For me, no calories. If you read the book, I guarantee you're going to be blown away, because talking with the book is chapters about each ingredient, or each component. And I read it and I'm cringing at the moment I'm starting the fat and salt sections, and I'm ready for the comments about, well, but you shouldn't have too much, right? You need salt, but just be careful, blah, blah, blah. It's not there. There's not one sentence in there about avoiding any of these or limiting them in any way. It's just talking about what they do, right? Why are they useful? And here's how to apply it. No, it's completely neutral from a health standpoint, which is amazing. And I think about how to create a different way to assemble a meal. How can we assemble a meal? Not thinking about macros, not thinking about, is there enough carbs or protein, or does this count as a protein, or does this count as a fat? I don't know. But I know what salt is: a salt, acid is this, fat is that, and heat. How can we apply some heat to it? Let's apply all of these things to your meal. And my hope, right, in the back of my mind is, I want to make food yummy. I don't care if it's a turkey sandwich or some fancy meal. You can make a lovely, lovely turkey sandwich that has flavor, that is delicious. Does it have things that our clients might be scared of? Yeah. But I think once they eat them with flavor, in addition to working on all of the sort of challenges that they have with including those foods, it becomes easier to do. No one is going to recover into a bland turkey sandwich. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. We need the fat, right? That I was talking about, right? We need to toast the bread probably, right? Maybe some acid. If you don't like mustard, it's a tomato. Like get some roasted turkey, right? Maybe not just the like the low salt bland one. Get a good thing of turkey. To me, I also think, again, very Rick Rubin, like, how does this build connection to food? How do we build connection with food? It might not work for folks, and that's okay. It might not work with folks, and that's okay. It might be too flexible. Some folks might need more structure. Connecting to food could be too hard. That's fine, but we can still talk about the concepts. Do we need more specifics for weight restoration? I mean, that's an honest question. I don't know. I really don't know. I think by including these components in food, I'm not that worried about weight restoration. Right? I think we could do this. I think this could apply, but I think it's a valid question. And again, this is my own creativity process. Is it working? Yes. Are there challenges? Absolutely. Does it pose a lot of problems? For sure. But it's a fun process. And I want my clients to know that it's fun, right? That learning to eat again and learning to have the better relationship with food can be fun. All right. I was not a paid sponsor by Samin Nosrat. So all the sales here go directly to her. I do not get a penny. Maybe I'll call her and ask her. All right. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about a creative approach to body image for a little bit. And again, just to give another example of what this looks like. A lot of of course, I set up body trust specialist, certified body trust specialist. So a lot of my work is focused on body image work on the foundation of reclaiming body trust, and the folks at the Center for Body Trust, Hillary Canavy, Dana Sturdivant, and Sirius Bonner. The book is sort of broken up into three big sections: the rupture, the reckoning, and the reclamation. Really recommend you read this book. I really recommend you get certified if you can. Not everyone can, but to me, it's been very useful. And for me as a dietitian, also, body image work has and always did feel the most inaccessible. It felt, again, it gets spoken a lot, and it felt out of my scope. I don't agree with that, but it felt like that. Felt like, oh, this is something I shouldn't talk about because there's going to be too much there, or I'm not going to be equipped to handle it, which is a fair comment. But I've come to this idea that when I think about scope of practice, the thing that shows up for me in an answer to that is empathy is never out of our scope of practice. And someone can show up and be struggling with something. I'm not going to give therapy to them, but can I provide empathy? Yeah. In today's world, how many folks just need to be seen and given some space to process what is going on in this world of ours? Empathy is never out of my scope of practice. I'm a human. You're a human. We need to build relationships together. So for me to say, you know what, can you make sure you talk about that? Let's hold on to that conversation. Talk about this with your therapist, I think is creating a barrier. So empathy is never out of our scope of practice. One of the things that goes along with this I've been thinking about doing this work is around body image is the thing that comes up over and over and over again that I never would have expected to be talking about over and over and over again. is grief. And so from a creative standpoint of working with body image, how are we making space for grief? And how are we holding space for a very difficult feeling? Everyone grieves. And, you know, in talking about grief with my supervisor and in different ways, um, great new Diana, I'm seeing that chat. That's a client of mine just brought up that book also. So I appreciate you saying that. And that's a great resource. I haven't read it yet, but it looks very good. It's a book called Body Grief by Jane Mattingly. But I think, listen, so going back in supervision, this is a topic that comes up in something I need support with, right, in helping my clients. And it breaks me every time. My supervisor says this, but it's like, we will grieve everything we love. You're going to lose everything you love at some point. Grieving is a natural part of life. And it's something we don't make space for in normal life, really. So why would we expect us to make space for grief in body image work and eating disorder recovery? It's, if we're not making space for it as a society in whole on a regular basis, how are we expecting for it to make space for it with folks struggling with body image? It's a very hard feeling to sit with. It's a very hard thing for our clients to feel. It requires a lot of patience, a lot of self-compassion to work through. And I'm talking about for us, right? It requires a lot of patience and a lot of self-compassion for us to hold space for and work through. Yes, is it hard to sit with? Yes, our feelings hard, but I'm guaranteeing that over the past yesterday and today, we are also learning resources about people's parts and how those parts are showing up in grieving process and how to support them through that. I know feeling the feels is overwhelming, and our clients might avoid it, we might avoid it, but it's a valuable part of the relationship we build with our clients, but also in the process. I think about coping with grief and body image as a few things. Okay. And again, there's going to be some overlap here with Rick Rubin, is building awareness and mindfulness, right? Is like, again, both for us and our clients. Where is our own professional support, right? How are we bringing this up in therapy? How are we talking with supervisors who are going to support us with this? Do we need support groups for other colleagues who are also sitting with these difficult feelings? I think, and I think part of a role here is it's way more than focusing on it's way more than focusing on body functionality rather than appearance. And what I mean by that is, like, we sometimes think about, there are some folks whose bodies are not functioning the way they need them to be. And are we make space for that grieving, but I think we also need to make space for the grieving when folks are grieving the loss of the thin ideal. And giving up the idea that, like, I'm never going to have the body that I dreamt about, that I pursued for so long. I'm not ready to give it up, but it is it's a long process, and it requires revisiting it over and over and over again. And the thing about grieving that I think is really challenging is that it does show up over and over and over again, right? It shows up on a really regular basis. We come back to it. We come back to the same things over and over and over again. And that's normal. And I think about, even not even grieving, but like the other parts of our work that are recurring themes, and how often we have the same conversations with clients. And I think one thing clients often tell me is, I'm sorry we're bringing this up again. And I tell them, like, we need to talk about this again. It's okay. That doesn't mean you're stuck. It means every time we come around to this topic, we're learning something new, right? Let's go back to Rick Rubin and the idea of failure, listening, dealing with problems. We're just going through it, right? Each time, and we learn something new. We do something a little bit differently. We try something a little bit differently. There are challenges and solutions for sure. Okay. So I'm just going to focus on a few right here, and then we're going to come back to some other things. Okay. I'm so thankful. Again, I'm grateful for Teresa and Nancy and the rest of the team for even having a conference like this that's focused on a new way of training folks and approaching this, that is opening our eyes and ideas and our hearts to new things that could be so supportive to folks. So, has traditional training failed us in some ways? Maybe. Not failed us, but maybe could have done things a lot differently, or didn't set us up for what really is happening in our offices and in our with our clients or over Zoom. Yeah. Yeah. Can we do differently? Absolutely. Can we learn differently? Yes. Does it mean we're sort of swimming and feeling a little bit like, oh, I don't know how to do this? Yeah. But that's where this idea of creativity really shows up, is that it's okay to be in that unknown. We need to be okay with failure. And again, I think in a lot of different ways that word can show up. But failure, I'm thinking about in terms of, again, maybe I wasn't a good fit for this client. Maybe they're going to, they are want to work with someone else. Or I brought up this kind of approach and it didn't work for them. It doesn't mean the idea is bad. Just means maybe it wasn't the right time for that person, or I could have presented it in a different way, and I'll learn. Also could just mean like, hey, listen, we made a plan, like we're going to try this, right? And it didn't work. That's okay. This is what Body Trust talks about, doing C-level work, getting a C in all of this. And this is where it shows up, right? I don't expect you to get an A in this recovery process, in this healing process. Get a C. But I really am curious about how comfortable we are with the idea of failure and failing. I think about how systems around us do not embrace the idea of failing. They actually say like that it's maybe the worst thing to do, but it is so much a part of the process. So folks were wondering if there was going to be a Yoda slide. Yes, there is going to be a Yoda slide. So if you had that on your bingo card, put bingo in the chat. Teresa has some lovely prizes for you. Just kidding, there are no prizes, but you can put bingo in the chat. All right, so this is a quote from one of the more recent Star Wars movies. And it says, passed on what you have learned, strength, mastery, but weakness, folly, failure, and also, yes, failure. Most of all, the greatest teacher failure is. And so if you don't know much about Star Wars, right, Yoda is like this, sort of Jedi master, teaches, tons of wisdom. Luke there is like, this is an older Luke who is, sort of made some mistakes. But I love the idea, right, of us being sort of Yodas and thinking about how we pass on strength, mastery, but we also pass on weakness, folly, and failure. And embracing the idea with our clients that we are also might fail, right? We might stumble, but that is also a part of it, right? The second part of this quote, I really love also, because he says, um, basically, the folks we work with eventually move on past us, right? And I think that's a lovely idea also, right? Is that we're helping people move forward, and growing past us at some point also. Okay, we're getting near the end. But one of the things I wanted to come back to, right, is before I get to the takeaways, is you were listening to the playlist, right? And I loved the comments in here about the playlist. And what I really would have you all know is, right, those are all Rick Rubin songs. You heard Walk This Way, you heard a couple Chili Pepper songs, you heard Audio Slave, which was a band that formed after Rage Against the Machine broke up, which was a combination of Soundgarden and Rage Against the Machine artists. One song in there that maybe was a little bit loud for the folks. Again, we're trying to hit the middle curve here, that I highly recommend y'all listen to, is called Renegades of Funk. It's a cover by Rage Against the Machine, an album which he produced of all covers. There's some really great words in there to inspire us as renegades, and how we are pushing up against things in so many ways. I love playlists. I love music. As you can tell by this talk, right? So if you ever want to share playlists, let me know. I will hit all the feels with y'all. And the other thing is, I was talking about giving this talk to a former client who I ran into, and the client was saying, like, "Oh, you're doing a talk on creativity. That's really interesting." And they said to me as we were talking, "Were we doing creative? Like, how did we do creativity together?" Right? Because for them, it's not like, I think it was almost like, hey, we weren't doing art together, we weren't doing like other creative endeavors. And I said, yeah, maybe, but on the back end, for me, all of what I was bringing to you was my own creativity, right? Was my own creative way of supporting you with where you're at. And so our clients might not notice us being artists, but we will. All right, we got one more Slido. Okay. And again, put your questions in there. We'll have plenty of time to answer questions as we go. But the question I'd love you to sort of ask is, how can you start to embrace a more creative approach to your work? You might already be doing it. You might want to try new things, but if you could sort of type in some things here, we'll see what comes up. I will tell you that, for me, the things that I have been able to hear over the past couple days, or yesterday, and we'll hear today, that I'm looking forward to being creatively, is like really exploring my own IFS sort of work personally. I don't, my therapist is not IFS. She's IFS informed, but not trained. But how it applies to me more, and really just loving the ways it could open up for me. So yeah, as folks are typing in stuff, listen, the other creative thing for me that I continue to think about are metaphors. And I think about all the ways metaphors can help articulate different things. It's why I love Star Wars. It's why I love so many of these sort of pop culture references that can show up. But I also think, just like the what we're talking about every day, right? And how we need to, make space for so much right now. And it really, again, brings a lot of discomfort, but it's also incredibly helpful as clients are getting support. Let's see. Hopefully some things have come through. I don't know if they're, oh, here we go. We got a word cloud. All right. So my apologies. I sort of put in the wrong thing here. So we probably could have only put in a few words here. But thinking about this, okay, I love these things. Cooking, different projects, flavor, embracing resistance, curiosity, cool. Thinking outside the box, music, yes, kinesthetic, empathy, movement, mirroring, okay, cool. Being curious about my own parts in the room. Yeah. So again, my apologies if I didn't give you enough place to put words in. So if you want to put stuff in the chat, we can also see what's in there as we go. So again, that was my bad. But like I'm just looking at the chat also as y'all are putting stuff in and seeing some of the things that could be really helpful. So maybe clients doing like artistic endeavors, getting out of my head. Yeah, I can resonate with that one for sure, right? And again, thinking about us as the artists, and thinking about how we are more flexible. So I think getting out of my head is definitely one of those things that is very important. So a couple of people just reached out to me before about some of this stuff and about doing this talk. And I was honest, listen, I'm in my head all the time with stuff like this. So nerd therapy, uh, I'm all in for the Dungeons and Dragons therapy groups. Just let me know. If I'm invited, I want to play. Okay, so let's do some just wrap up, and then we'll take some questions. I want us to really think about us as artists. All right, no matter what your profession, no matter how you're supporting clients, how can we be more artists? Okay. It's a way of being in the world, no matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you can listen, if you can do something artistic or not. We are artists. We are creative. It's a way of seeing the world with a different lens. How are we thinking about what is possible? How are we listening? How are we thinking about new ways to solve problems? Even if we've been doing this for years, there are always new ways to solve problems. Rick Rubin has had a career since the beginning of the 80s. That's 40 some years. Music has changed, and he's continuing to think about working with artists and supporting them solving problems. This is way harder work. There is no cookie cutter approach to this, right? And I sort of love that, but I also know that for a lot of folks, that's very uncomfortable. But I love the idea that we get to sort of navigate this in our own way. This last quote I'm putting for me to remember, but also for y'all. And this is one we've already said. The goal is not to fit in. If anything, it's to amplify the differences, what doesn't fit, the special characteristics unique to how we see the world. Instead of sounding like others, value your own voice, develop it. I said at the beginning, this is the first time I've ever done a talk like this. Not comfortable. I mean, I'm comfortable now, like doing it, but like to do something different, to say it in a different way, to look at it from a different light means we might not fit in. That's okay. It's to amplify the differences. Think about how you all can amplify that, the differences that you are seeing. The goal is not to fit in. It's for you to amplify how you see the world. And you see the world of our work and things like that. So instead of sounding like others, value your own voice and develop it. Again, I need to hear that, especially today. I also really think it's important for us to remember as we navigate this world and this work. Okay. Those are the slides, and we can open it up for questions. Um, I'm gonna stop sharing. Is that okay? And then I can see everyone.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can see
Awesome.
you, or people can see me more.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was so great. I know that everybody in the chat is just so thrilled with what you had to say. No one could tell that you were nervous at all. That was just very well done. And thank you so much for your time. We do have a couple questions.
Yeah.
First one, do you find that any population in general, age, gender, diagnoses, ethnicity, are more or less receptive to those more creative approaches in eating disorder treatment?
Mm. Um, so that's a great question. Um, I'm gonna answer it both from like the scientific part of like, this is not researched. This is me sort of doing this, right? So the N is whoever comes through my door. Um, and unfortunately, I mean, I work with a fair amount of diverse folks, but it's not wildly representative of every of all the different things. So I would to me, I think here's the secret sauce. Okay, honestly, I think the secret sauce is it doesn't about regardless of gender or race or age or diagnosis or presentation. I think the secret sauce is the relationship that I'm building with my clients, the relationships you are going to build with your clients, right? And if they trust that you sort of know where you're going to go, or that you have an idea of where you want to go with this, they're going to go with you. So I think that's the secret, right? And like I listen, I also can't tell everyone how to do that. That's me. But what I found is the folks that this doesn't resonate with yet, right? Or like especially like the salt, fat, acid, heat piece or the grief piece. Um, it's not about that it's like doesn't it's not it's the wrong approach. It's more like they're maybe just not like in the stage of where they are in their healing process to sort of get the 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 full nuance of it. But it is, I don't know. I think again, I think about planting that seed, right? It might not be there yet, but I'm going to plant that seed for later. Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you speak to any further suggestions for creatively supporting clients who get especially activated when they revisit body image grief? You mentioned the cyclical nature of topics that come up again and again, and rightfully so, in eating disorder treatment. I know clients can get really down on themselves when they feel like certain topics come up again and again, the feeling of like they should be further along in this process than they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my spidey sense tingles, right? With the word should. And so anytime my clients are saying, well, I should be farther along. And I'm like, according to who? Who says you should be farther along? And I think that's, when I talk about like they or them, right? Like I think about um, like the big sort of like narratives around eating disorders is, um, is the idea that like you're going to do this very cleanly, smoothly, and you're going to get to the end. And my question for clients is like, what does the end really look like? Is there really an end? I don't know. So I want to normalize revisiting the same topic, right? It's not, it doesn't mean you're not farther along, right? Again, we might hit that topic and we might learn something new each time we come around. I also think it's important to maybe contextualize grieving outside of body image work and think about like, what have you grieved something you've lost? When that grief hit you again, right? Did you beat yourself up to say, oh, I should be past, I should be over grieving the loss of someone, right? Or the loss of something. No, we don't do that. But the idea that we're going to do this perfectly, right? And we're going to do this really going along a linear path, is sort of rooted in all the systems of oppression in our world. I think it's rooted in diet culture. It's rooted in white supremacy. It's rooted in capitalism, uh, and this work is not like that. So I think, or we're pushing up against those things. The other thing I say is, I think is important to note is like, I'm asking you to recover or to heal in a world that is still very anti-fat, that is still rooted in diet culture, that is still rooted in wellness culture. And you're that this is why I love Star Wars again, right? Because you're a rebel. You're being a rebel, right? And it's why I wanted that song, The Renegades of Funk. Why I wanted that song in, y'all to listen to that song is because we're renegades. We're asking our clients to be renegades, to fight against these really big systems, and that's really hard.
Absolutely. I think that as dietitians, just speaking as a dietitian myself, we can get really entrenched in that kind of rigidity of thinking and how to be more creative with clients. So I definitely understand that, especially with this next question. Do you have any practices that you utilize when you recognize you're in your own head or attached to the results of a certain client?
Uh, do I have any? Do I have any processes? Is that what it question?
Yeah, practices, processes, yeah.
Okay, got it. Uh, therapy, supervision, are essential. I, you know, I'm grateful because, again, listening to Marcy's talk, I just wanted to sort of resonate with a few things. Like, I'm like Marcy sort of said, I'm lucky to have some colleagues that are so dear and close, who hold me in a way that most other folks can't support me. And they, again, sort of like the duck analogy, right? I look right now like I'm all calm and whatever, right? And under the water, the little feet are paddling crazy, you know? And so for me, having some folks, both who are collegial, but also personal, um, that can hold me and allow me to be imperfect and allow me to be insecure, is so helpful. Like, my inner critic is quite lovely, and I hate them. Uh, but it's like it's there, and I need to feel like I can give it, say it out loud a little bit to folks without uh, them being able to hold space for me with it, is really the most powerful thing. And then also, I'll be honest, like the Substack that I'm writing, there's some personal stuff in there. And I think what I've, again, creatively, right? I never thought I would be writing a Substack. Um, but for me, sometimes it's really, I'm finding it's really easy to write about it. Like, it's easier to, and even though most of the people on my Substack, I don't know, and I know I'm sharing some vulnerable stuff with people I don't know. Um, I think it's important. It's been valuable to me to be able to, like, here's an outlet for this. And then also, the other reason I'm doing it is being socialized male, is to say my feelings out loud, is not very common or okay. And so part of the reason I am willing and want to do it is to show other dudes out there that it's okay. It's okay to say, I'm not okay. Right. So folks close to me, and they say, like, hey, how are you? And then my first answer, I'm fine. And then I sort of pause and I'm like, I'm not really fine, right? Like, how can we be fine right now? And so I have some folks where I can say, like, I'm not fine. And that's really been so helpful and meaningful. And I'm grateful for it.
Absolutely. The community is so
Yeah.
important. I just had one come in. What is a Substack? Just so we
Ah,
have that info.
what is the link, or what is Substack?
Just what is a Substack?
Yeah. Substack is a site where folks can post like newsletters or like articles they want to write. Thank you, Amanda, for putting it in there. Amanda gets that in her bingo card as well. Yeah, so it's aaronfloresrdn.substack.com. It's free for me to, you don't need to pay to register to follow mine. And thank you for putting in there. So I'm posting weekly, usually every Monday about something. And so yeah, Substack is a way to sort of, other than social media, to hear and get some other people's insights into topics. So there are other really great Substacks. Yes, it's like a blog. Virginia Soul Smith has a great Substack. Christina Harrison has a great Substack. Reagan Chastain has an amazing Substack. So if you register for mine, I have links to those on mine. And like I said, I've really enjoyed it, and I've written about some fun stuff that I didn't think people would really take off the way it did, but yeah, I'll encourage you to check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. This is a really good question that I can resonate with in my practice a lot. What have you noticed coming up for you as you switch from that place of being the nutrition expert to being curious and compassionate with your clients?
Can you say the first part again?
What have you noticed coming up
Mhm.
as you switch from the place of being the nutrition
Yeah,
expert to being more curious and compassionate with clients?
yeah. Um, that's a very good question. So I feel like what I've noticed first off is it's way more authentic to me. I think, again, people, what's the secret sauce? I think I'm just sort of, and many of us are on here, right? That's why we do this work. Is that is a very comfortable space for me to hold empathy and compassion for folks, and so it feels. I've noticed how authentic it feels. Um, I've also noticed that, well, first of all, my profession, right, says we're RDs are the nutrition experts. It's a phrase I've really disliked from day one, um, because it sets up such a hierarchical understanding of food and the way it impacts people's bodies, and that never felt good. So it was easy to sort of get rid of that part of me showing up in this work, because I never felt good about. But what did feel what I did notice also is that once you ditched that way of sort of showing up, um, it it requires, in a lot of ways, me to be very clear with my clients what how I'm going to do this work, like being so they can consent in, really, right? Because some clients are like, well, I want you to tell me what to eat. Like, I want you to give me what is the um you know how many grams of blank I should be eating, or should I not be eating this, or should I, like, and when I tell them, like, listen, that's just not how I'm going to work. There are a lot of folks who will, and I'm happy to give you their names, but like, this is how I'm choosing to do this work. And again, helpful colleagues have told me, and I need to remember, is this work isn't for everyone. The space that I'm going to hold with people, and I don't know, I'm not trying to overstate this, but like, it's not for everyone. And so I want people to feel like they are opting in to be with me. And if you don't want to do this work this way, that's okay. There's a lot of other folks who can support you in other ways, and my door is still going to be open. Those are the things I've sort of noticed.
Absolutely. I think this last question is going to be a nice piggyback onto that. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about navigating non-traditional treatment methods and more creative ways of working with clients with the very real constraints of taking insurance.
Boy, yeah. Well,
Loaded one.
yeah, Teresa, invite me back next year and we'll talk about that. So full disclosure, I don't take insurance. And a lot of my colleagues do, and especially there are a lot of dietitians who are joining these very big sort of like venture capital group practices that offer insurance. No, that's what they want to do, and that's how they want to work. That's fine. For me, I acknowledge the limitations in that. And it's why I'm a part of Project Heal and their Healer Circle, and will gladly open my door to pro bono work for folks that applies for. I also am. I tell folks this. I said, listen, I if you want to be working with me, if you want to be in my if you want to partner together, I'm going to do everything I can to make it work for you. And I think so. So that's why, right? Part of why I started a Substack is, listen, some folks might just want to read or get support from me in that way. Like I can offer support via a Substack. I can offer support via a podcast. I can offer support in these ways also, in addition to it's a marketing thing, sure, but I mean, these are also ways to like sort of connect with me. So I'm always right now, especially thinking about what are different things I can offer to folks that will make my work accessible to them in some way. And that's my own creative process. So that's coming in May. I get to sit down with
Absolutely.
all of that.
Yeah, accessibility going beyond insurance is so important.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much, Erin. This was so great. Everybody truly benefited from this, myself included. This was just so great. I'd like to just take 1 second to say thank you to Teresa Chestnut for her unwavering dedication to continuing the legacy of the Tri-State Eating Disorder Conference. For the third consecutive year, she has curated an incredible lineup of speakers and presentations. Her commitment has been truly amazing and unwavering and has made this event shine. So thank you so much, Teresa.
Oh, thank you, Kay, for
Mm.
saying that.